The supply flight should have been routine. Captain Ryan Cole had flown this route 40 times, his German Shepherd Atlas sleeping peacefully behind him. But today, Atlas wouldn't settle. The dog pressed against the window, whining at an empty island below. Then Ryan saw it, 3 massive letters carved into the beach, a distress signal from nowhere. When Coast Guard rescuers arrived and saw what Atlas uncovered in the jungle, their faces drained of color. What they found wasn't just survivors. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please hit that subscribe button. Stay till the end, because what Atlas discovers will leave you speechless. The morning sun turned the Pacific Ocean into liquid gold. Not a cloud marred the perfect blue sky. The kind of day pilots lived for. Captain Ryan Cole sat in the cockpit of his Cessna Caravan, hands steady on the controls, eyes scanning the endless expanse of water below. At 38, he still looked every bit the Air Force pilot he'd been for 12 years. Square jaw, brown hair cut military short, green eyes that never stopped watching. Old habits died hard. Behind him, secured in a custom safety harness, lay Atlas. The German Shepherd was 5 years old, 85 pounds of solid muscle, wrapped in a coat of classic black and tan. His ears were alert triangles, his eyes deep brown and intelligent. Atlas had been Ryan's partner for 3 years during his Air Force service. Together, they'd deployed to Iraq twice and Afghanistan once. Together, they'd come home when Ryan's 12-year enlistment ended 6 months ago. Ryan had left the military not because of an injury or an incident, but because of something quieter. 20 combat rescue missions, 20 times leading teams into hostile territory to extract pilots, rescue soldiers, save lives under fire. 20 times making split-second decisions that determined who lived and who died. After the 20th mission, something inside him had just gone quiet. Not broken exactly, just tired. So he'd taken his commercial pilot's license, bought a used Cessna Caravan, and started flying cargo in the Pacific. Medical supplies to remote research stations, equipment to tiny island communities, mail to places so isolated they saw a plane once a week. Simple work. Honest work. Work that didn't wake him at 3 in the morning, drenched in sweat, from dreams he couldn't quite remember. Atlas usually slept during these flights. The steady drone of the Lycoming engine, the gentle vibration of the airframe, the warm sun through the windows. It all combined to lull the dog into peaceful sleep. Ryan had come to depend on that quiet companionship. Just the two of them, 5,000 feet above the world, where nothing could touch them, where the past stayed buried. Today's flight was routine. Supplies to the Palmyra Atoll Research Station, 300 pounds of food, replacement parts for their water filtration system, and personal mail. The station was 90 minutes out. Below, the Pacific stretched endlessly, broken only by scattered islands. Most were uninhabited specks of rock and sand. Ryan had passed over hundreds of them, never gave them a second thought. The sound started so quietly, Ryan almost missed it. A low vibration, not mechanical, something else. He glanced at his instruments. Everything normal. Fuel pressure good. Oil temperature stable. RPMs steady. All systems showing green. Then he heard it again. Louder this time. A whine, coming from behind him. Ryan turned in his seat. Atlas was awake. Not just awake. Alert. The dog stood in his harness, weight shifted forward, ears rigid, nose pressed against the small side window. The whine came again, low, urgent, insistent. That was Atlas's detection whine. The sound he made when he'd found something in combat. An IED, an ambush, a threat. Something wrong. Ryan's pulse quickened slightly. What is it, boy? You see a whale? Atlas loved spotting whales, the massive creatures surfacing in the blue water below. But this wasn't his excited bark. This was different. This was the sound that in Afghanistan had meant danger, 30 seconds before anyone else saw it. The dog's whine intensified. He pawed at the window, claws scratching the frame. His whole body trembled with tension. Atlas turned to look at Ryan, then back at the window, then at Ryan again. The message was clear. Look down there. See it. Ryan had learned a long time ago not to ignore Atlas's instincts. In Kandahar province, the dog had alerted to an improvised explosive device buried 4 feet underground, packed into a clay pot, completely invisible. In Mosul, Atlas had sensed an ambush building in a supposedly friendly neighborhood, giving Ryan's team 45 seconds to take cover before the shooting started. The dog's nose, his senses, his combat-trained instincts. They were radar that never failed. Okay, Ryan said, his voice calm, despite the adrenaline starting to trickle into his bloodstream. Show me what you've got. He banked the Cessna to the right, following Atlas's line of sight. The dog tracked something on the ground, body rigid, whine building to almost a bark. Below, about 2 miles off his right wing, was an island. Nothing remarkable at first glance. Ryan had flown over it dozens of times on this route, maybe half a mile long, quarter-mile wide at its widest point. Rocky volcanic outcroppings dominated the northern end. A white sand beach curved along the southern shore. Scrub vegetation, a few scattered palms, clinging to existence in the salt spray. His navigation charts marked it as uninhabited, privately owned but abandoned decades ago. Not worth developing, too small, too remote, no fresh water source. Atlas's whine became a bark, sharp, urgent, the alert bark, the one that in combat meant contact imminent. Ryan's training kicked in automatically, heart rate controlled, breathing steady, hands sure on the controls. He dropped altitude, from 5,000 feet to 3,000, then to 1,000. The island grew larger in his windscreen. He scanned it methodically, left to right, top to bottom, grid pattern, looking for whatever Atlas had detected. At first, nothing. Just an empty island baking in the Pacific sun. Then he dropped to 500 feet and saw it. On the beach, carved into the pristine white sand, 3 letters. Each one had to be 20 feet tall, maybe more. They'd been constructed from driftwood and rocks, the edges marked with what looked like pieces of brightly colored fabric. Even from 500 feet up, even against the glare of sun on sand, they were unmistakable. SOS. Ryan's breath caught in his chest. His right hand automatically reached for his radio before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. The letters were fresh. The lines were deep, deliberate, precisely formed. This wasn't old. This was recent. Hours old at most. The tide line showed high water had been 15 feet away. The afternoon tide would reach the letters in maybe 4 hours. Whoever made this knew exactly what they were doing, knew how to signal, knew they had a limited window before the ocean erased their plea. Someone was down there, someone who desperately needed help. But the island was empty, supposed to be empty, marked on every chart as abandoned. No structures, no water source, no reason for anyone to be there. Which meant whoever had made that signal wasn't there voluntarily. Ryan circled lower, 300 feet. His eyes swept the beach, the tree line, the rocky areas, looking for movement, looking for waving arms, looking for any sign of whoever had created that desperate message. Atlas was frantic now, The dog had given up on the window. He was trying to get out of his harness, pawing at the straps, barking continuously, not random barking, directed, focused, at something specific on the ground. Ryan could see the individual footprints now around the SOS letters. Multiple sets, different sizes, adult and child-sized. At least 6 different people had worked on this. This wasn't one survivor. This was multiple people. Maybe a family. Maybe more. But where were they? Why weren't they on the beach? Why weren't they visible? Ryan's mind raced through possibilities. Injured and unable to move, taking shelter from the sun, hiding from something. That last thought sent ice down his spine. He reached for his radio, keyed the mic. Coast Guard, Coast Guard. This is November 72 Kilo Charlie. I have a confirmed distress signal. SOS on uninhabited island. Request immediate assistance. Static. Just static. He tried again. Coast Guard, come in. Nothing. Ryan checked his radio. Power on. Frequency correct. Squelch set properly. The equipment was working. So why couldn't he transmit? He pulled out his backup. A handheld aviation radio. Tried the emergency frequency. Still, nothing. Just static. Then his satellite phone. The expensive backup system he'd installed specifically for emergencies in the remote Pacific. He powered it on, waited for it to acquire satellites. It usually took 15 seconds. 1 minute passed. The phone searched, searching. No signal. That wasn't right. Satellite phones worked everywhere. That was the entire point, unless something was actively blocking the signal. Ryan's combat instincts, dormant for 6 months, suddenly roared to life. Someone was jamming communications, deliberately, professionally, which meant this wasn't an accident, this wasn't a shipwreck or a lost boat. This was something else, something planned. He looked at the SOS again, at the pristine beach, at the empty tree line, at his instruments showing he had 40 minutes of fuel before he'd have to turn back. Standard procedure was crystal clear. You spot a distress signal, you report it, you mark the coordinates, you leave rescue to the professionals. Coast Guard would arrive in 4 hours with boats and helicopters and medical teams. That's how it worked. But 4 hours from now, the tide would wash away that SOS, and whoever made it would still be down there, dying of dehydration in 95-degree heat, or worse. Ryan looked at Atlas. The dog had stopped barking. He was staring at Ryan now. Those brown eyes held absolute certainty. The same look he'd had in Kandahar before alerting to that IED. The same look in Mosul before the ambush. Complete, unwavering conviction. We need to go down there. Right now. Not later. Now. Ryan scanned the beach one more time. No obstacles he could see. The sand looked firm, packed hard by tides. The Cessna Caravan had high ground clearance and wide tires. He'd landed on worse in Afghanistan. Dirt strips, gravel roads. He'd even put down on a dried riverbed once under fire. This was just sand. One quick look, Ryan said out loud, not sure if he was talking to Atlas or himself. We land, we check it out, we find whoever made that signal, we get a message to the Coast Guard somehow, then we leave. That's it. In and out, just like old times. He pulled back on the throttle, dropped full flaps, and lined up on the beach. The Cessna slowed. The stall warning horn began its insistent chirp. 90 knots, 80, 70. The beach rushed up at him, white sand and blue water and those 3 massive letters filling his windscreen. 60 knots, 50, 40. The main wheels touched sand. The plane jolted, bounced once, settled. Ryan reversed the propeller pitch and applied brakes. They slowed. slowed, stopped, 50 feet from the SOS letters. He killed the engine. Sudden silence, just the sound of waves hitting the beach and wind rustling through palm trees. Atlas was already working on his harness. The dog had learned years ago how to release the quick disconnect buckles. Emergency extraction training. Get out of the helicopter fast. Get to cover. Get into the fight. Ryan grabbed his go bag from behind his seat. Inside was everything he never left home without. Flare gun and 6 flares. Fixed blade knife in a Kydex sheath. First aid kit with trauma supplies. 2 liters of water. 6 protein bars. A space blanket. 50 feet of paracord. And his Sig Sauer P320 9mm pistol with 3 spare magazines. 60 rounds total. He'd kept carrying concealed after leaving the Air Force. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's what his instructors had drilled into him at Kirtland Air Force Base during para-rescue training. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, be ready for anything. He checked the pistol, magazine seated, round in the chamber, safety on. He tucked it in the waistband of his cargo pants, covered it with his shirt. Old habits. The heat hit him the moment he opened the cockpit door. Had to be 98 degrees, maybe more. The air was thick, humid, heavy with salt. But there was something else, a smell underneath the salt and seaweed. Something that made Ryan's nose wrinkle. Something wrong, something organic and wrong. Atlas was out immediately, nose to the ground, already working. The dog moved in a tight search pattern, sweeping left, then right, covering ground efficiently. His tail was up, but not wagging. His ears rotated independently, processing sounds. This was Atlas in combat mode. Professional, focused, deadly serious. Ryan approached the SOS letters on foot. Up close, they were even more impressive than from the air. Each letter was precisely 23 feet long, he estimated, constructed from pieces of driftwood jammed into the sand to form the outlines. The spaces between filled with white rocks. Pieces of brightly colored cloth, looked like torn clothing, had been placed in strategic spots to create color contrast against the sand. Reds and blues and yellows, visible from the air. Whoever made this knew what they were doing. This wasn't amateur hour. This was someone with training, search and rescue knowledge, or survival training, or military background. Ryan knelt beside the S, studied the sand. Multiple footprints overlapped each other. He could identify at least 5 distinct sizes. 2 adult males by the size and depth, 1 adult female, 2 children. 1 young, maybe 8 or 9, 1 teenager. So at least 5 people, maybe more, working together to create this signal. The sand inside the letter grooves was still damp. He touched it with his fingertip. Cool, still holding moisture from this morning's tide, which meant this SOS had been constructed between 6 and 10 hours ago. Dawn work, before the sun got too hot, before dehydration set in too badly. Ryan stood, shaded his eyes, and scanned the beach in both directions. "Hello," he called out, his voice carrying in the still air. "I saw your signal. I'm here to help. Come out. It's safe." His voice echoed off the rocks, faded. Silence, just waves and wind. Atlas barked, once, sharp. The alert bark. Ryan spun. The dog was 30 feet away, at the edge where beach met jungle, staring into the dense vegetation. His body was rigid, every muscle tensed. His hackles were up, fur standing on end along his spine. That was threat posture. That was the stance Atlas took when he detected danger. Ryan's hand moved automatically to his weapon. Didn't draw, just rested on the grip. Ready. "What you got, boy?" Ryan moved toward the dog, eyes scanning the shadows under the trees. The jungle here was thick. Palms, scrub brush, vines, all tangled together, dark under the canopy despite the bright sun. Good cover, good concealment, good place for an ambush. Atlas didn't bark again, just stared, waiting, patient, disciplined. But his message was clear as day. Something in there. Something important. Something we need to investigate. "Hello," Ryan called toward the trees, his voice firm but not aggressive. "I'm a pilot. I saw your SOS. I'm here to help. You're safe now. Come out." Silence. Long enough that Ryan started wondering if Atlas had detected an animal. Wild pig, maybe. This far out in the Pacific, the isolated islands sometimes had feral populations. Then movement. Just a flicker. Blue fabric against green vegetation. Small, low to the ground. "It's okay," Ryan said, softer now. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Ryan. This is Atlas. We're here to help." More movement. A figure emerged from the shadows, slowly, cautiously, every movement screaming fear and desperate hope in equal measure. A girl, maybe 10 years old, maybe 12. Hard to tell. She was thin, too thin. Her clothes were torn and filthy. Her face was scratched, blood crusted on her cheek. Her hair was tangled with leaves and sand. Her feet were bare and cut. But her eyes were what stopped Ryan's heart. They were hollow, ancient. Eyes that had seen things no child should ever see. She stopped at the edge of the tree line, frozen, deciding. Trust the stranger with the dog, or run back into the jungle. Every muscle in her small body was coiled, ready to bolt. Atlas sat, immediately, without Ryan giving the command. The dog knew, made himself small, non-threatening. It was something Ryan had spent months training. Kids were scared of big dogs, but sitting dogs were safe, friendly. Ryan crouched down, making himself smaller too, non-threatening. "Hey there," he said gently. "Are you hurt? Do you need water?" The girl's lips moved, but no sound came out. Her throat was probably raw, swollen, dehydration. 5 days, maybe more, in this heat. Ryan slowly, moving like he was approaching a wounded animal, pulled a water bottle from his bag. He held it up so she could see it. Then he set it down on the sand, right at the boundary between beach and jungle. He backed up 3 steps. "It's okay. Take it. Drink. You're safe now." The girl stared at the water, at Ryan, at Atlas, back to the water. Her whole body trembled. Then, in one quick motion, she darted forward, grabbed the bottle, and retreated back toward the trees. She drank, desperately, water spilling down her chin, soaking her torn shirt. She drank half the bottle before coming up for air, gasping, coughing. Color started returning to her face, the gray cast of dehydration fading just slightly. "What's your name?" Ryan asked, his voice as gentle as he could make it. "Emma." It came out as a croak, a whisper, but it was a word. Communication. "Hi, Emma. I'm Ryan. That's Atlas. How long have you been here?" Tears suddenly spilled down her cheeks. 5 days. We thought no one would see. We thought we'd die here." 5 days. 5 days in this heat, with no food and probably very little water. The human body could survive 3 days without water in temperate conditions. In 90-degree heat, constantly sweating, burning through fluids. Most people would be dead by day 4. "Are there others?" Ryan asked. "You said we. Is there someone else?" Emma nodded frantically. "My brother Tyler. He's 8. And the others. The people from the boat. They're in the cave. We couldn't get them out. The door's locked. We tried, but we can't open it. Please, please, you have to help them." Ryan's blood went cold. How many people in the cave? I don't know. 20 maybe, more. They locked them in 3 days ago, said they'd come back, but they didn't. And there's no food, no water. We could hear them crying, begging. We tried to get them out, but the door. It's metal. It's locked. We can't. 20 people, locked in a cave, in this heat, for 3 days. No food, no water. Most would be in critical condition. Some might already be dead. This wasn't a shipwreck. This wasn't an accident. This was human trafficking, and it had gone catastrophically wrong. Ryan stood up, made a decision. Show me the cave, right now. Take me there. Emma led him into the jungle. Atlas stayed close to her left side, protective. The dog had always had a soft spot for kids. Used to visit the children's ward at the base hospital in Afghanistan. Made the kids smile even when nothing else could. The terrain was rough. Volcanic rock covered in thin soil. The vegetation grabbed at Ryan's legs. Thorns tore at his arms. The heat under the canopy was oppressive, suffocating. Emma moved through it all without seeming to notice. 5 days of survival had hardened her to discomfort. They climbed for 12 minutes, up the rocky slope toward the northern end of the island. The sound of waves faded. The jungle got denser. Then Emma stopped. There, she whispered, pointing ahead. Cut into the volcanic rock was a cave entrance, about 8 feet tall, 6 feet wide. The opening was natural, formed millions of years ago by lava tubes and ocean erosion. But what covered it was anything but natural. A heavy steel door, industrial grade, the kind you'd see on a commercial freezer or a bank vault, and securing it, a massive padlock. Chrome, plated, heavy-duty, military specification. Ryan pressed his ear against the metal. He could hear them. Voices, weak, desperate, movement, pounding. Someone hitting the door from inside. "Hello," Ryan shouted, his voice echoing. "Can you hear me in there?" "Yes." A male voice, hoarse, barely human. "Please, we've been here 3 days. No water. Some are sick. Children. Please get us out." Ryan examined the lock. High security, hardened steel shackle. No way he was breaking it without tools. Industrial bolt cutters, maybe, or explosives. He had neither. He pulled out his satellite phone, tried again. Still no signal. The jamming was active. Professional-level electronic warfare, which meant whoever locked these people in here wasn't amateur hour. This was organized, well-funded, dangerous. "I'm going to get help," Ryan called through the door. "Hold on, I'm going to get you out." A woman's voice, breaking. "My babies. I have 2 babies in here. Please hurry. They haven't had water in 2 days." Babies. Dear God. Ryan grabbed Emma's arm. Not rough, but firm. "Emma, listen to me. Where are the men? The ones who locked these people in here? Where are they?" "They left 2 days ago. In a boat. Said they'd be back. But they haven't come." "What kind of boat?" "Fast. White. It had engines in the back. 3 men. A speedboat, which meant they could return any time. And if they came back and found Ryan's plane on the beach." Atlas growled. Low, deep, warning growl. The dog was staring back down the slope toward the beach. His ears were back, his lips pulled back, showing teeth. Then Ryan heard it. Faint but getting louder. An engine. Coming from the ocean. They'd come back. Ryan's mind went into combat mode. Instant. Automatic. Assess the situation. Identify the threat. Formulate a response. Execute. 3 armed men. 1 pilot with a pistol and a combat canine. Terrible odds. But he'd faced worse in Afghanistan, and he had surprise. They didn't know he was here yet. "Emma, hide. Right now. Get behind those rocks. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Understand?" She nodded, eyes wide, and scrambled into the rocks. Ryan moved down the slope, silent, fast, using the vegetation for cover. Atlas shadowed him, no commands needed. They'd done this 100 times. Move to contact, close with, and destroy the enemy. Para-rescue might be about saving lives, but sometimes you had to take lives to do it. He reached a point where he could see the beach. A white speedboat with twin outboard motors was pulling up to the shore. 3 men jumped out. They were armed. Pistols visible, tucked in waistbands. One carried a shotgun. Pump action, 12 gauge. These weren't fishermen. These weren't researchers. These were the traffickers, and they'd come back to check on their merchandise. Ryan watched them approach his Cessna. They circled it cautiously, weapons ready. One pulled out a radio, spoke into it. The others started searching the beach, looking for whoever had landed the plane. Ryan had 2 choices: hide and hope they left, or engage. But if they found Emma, if they decided to eliminate witnesses, if they went to the cave and decided to finish what they'd started, there was no choice. Ryan hadn't always been a cargo pilot flying supplies to research stations. 18 months ago, he'd been Captain Ryan Cole, United States Air Force Para-Rescue. Guardian angel. The ones who went in when everyone else gave up. The ones who extracted pilots from behind enemy lines. The ones who saved soldiers under fire. The ones who brought people home against impossible odds. He'd led 20 combat rescue missions, 20 times going into hot zones, 20 times making life or death decisions in seconds, 20 times coming home with everyone he'd gone in to save, until Mission 21. It was supposed to be simple. A Navy SEAL team pinned down in Helmand Province. Taking fire from multiple positions, casualties. They needed extraction, and they needed it 10 minutes ago. Ryan had led his team in. 2 helicopters, fast rope insertion, secure the LZ, load the wounded, get out. Except the intelligence was wrong. The enemy force was twice the size reported, and they had RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades. One hit the lead helicopter, Ryan's helicopter. They'd crashed, hard. 2 casualties. Ryan fractured his collarbone. But they fought their way out, secured the SEAL team, got everyone to the backup extraction point. Mission successful, except for the 2 men who died when they went down. Sergeant Martinez and Airman First Class Chen. Good men, brave men, men with families, men who'd trusted Ryan to bring them home. The investigation cleared him. Pilot error ruled out. Intel failure confirmed. But it didn't matter. Ryan had been in command. Those men had died on his watch. He'd finished his deployment, put in his paperwork, left the Air Force with an honorable discharge and a chest full of medals he never wore. But looking at those 3 armed men searching for him, hearing those voices crying from the cave, thinking about Emma and her brother and 20 people locked in the dark, dying of thirst, Ryan realized something. He'd never stopped being a guardian angel. He'd just been hiding. Atlas heel, Ryan whispered. The dog moved to his left side, instantly. We're going down there. 3 tangos, armed. You take the one on the left when I give the command. I'll handle the other 2. Rules of engagement. Disable, not kill, unless absolutely necessary. Clear? Atlas's tail wagged once. The dog understood. They'd done this kind of thing before. Different country, different enemy, same mission. Protect the innocent. Eliminate the threat. Ryan moved down through the rocks, silent as smoke. 20 years of training took over. Control your breathing. Watch your footing. Use cover and concealment. Never silhouette yourself against the skyline. Move slow. Be patient. He got within 30 feet. Close. Enough to hear their conversation. Plane's fresh, one said, heavy accent. Pilot has to be here. Find them, another replied, harder voice. We can't have witnesses. Too many questions already about why we need the jammer. So, they were jamming communications. That confirmed it. Check the jungle. If they found the cave. If they called for help. The third man, the one with the shotgun, started walking toward the tree line, toward the path to the cave, toward where Emma was hiding. Ryan couldn't wait any longer. He stepped out from behind the rocks, pistol in both hands, aimed at center mass. Don't move. Drop your weapons. Hands where I can see them. Now. The three men spun. Surprise registered on their faces. For maybe half a second. Then the one with the shotgun smiled. Cold. Predatory. Just one guy. And a dog. Think you can take all three of us, hero? They didn't drop their weapons. They raised them. Ryan should have fired. Every instinct, every hour of training, every combat scenario he'd ever run through. All of it screamed fire first. Eliminate the threat. Protect yourself. Protect Emma. Protect those people in the cave. But he hesitated. 1 second. Maybe 2. These weren't enemy combatants in Afghanistan. This wasn't a war zone. This was civilian territory. Different rules, different laws. If he fired first, even in self-defense, it would be complicated. Legal complications, investigations, questions. That 1 second of hesitation cost him everything. The shotgun roared. Ryan dove left, rolled behind a rock. Buckshot peppered the sand where he'd been standing 2 seconds before. He came up, fired twice at the shooter. Both rounds hit center mass. The man dropped. Atlas launched himself at the second trafficker. 90 pounds of military-trained German Shepherd hit like a guided missile. They went down hard. The man screamed as Atlas's teeth found his forearm. The pistol fell from his hand. The third man had flanked right. Ryan didn't see him until too late. Something hard cracked across the back of Ryan's skull. The world exploded into white light and stabbing pain. His vision grayed. The pistol slipped from his hands. He fell forward. Tried to catch himself. Couldn't. Hit the sand face first. Tasted blood. Heard Atlas snarl and then yelp. A gunshot. The dog cried out in pain. Then darkness swallowed everything. Pain brought Ryan back, throbbing agony at the base of his skull. His hands were zip-tied behind his back, plastic cuffs cutting into his wrists. He was lying on his side in the sand. The sun beat down mercilessly. Had to be over 100 degrees now. His mouth was dry. His head pounded. He could hear voices, arguing in a language he didn't speak. Spanish, maybe, or Portuguese. Hard to tell through the ringing in his ears. 20 feet away, Atlas lay motionless. Blood matted the fur on his shoulder. Dark red. Too much blood. But the dog's side rose and fell. Shallow breaths. Alive. Barely. Rage flooded through Ryan. Pure, incandescent rage. Not the hot rage of combat. The cold rage of absolute determination. These men had shot his dog, his partner, his friend, the one who'd saved his life a dozen times. They were going to pay for that. Finally awake, a voice above him. The third trafficker, the one who'd hit him. Mid-40s, scar on his left cheek. Dead eyes. Bad move, hero. Very bad move. Should have minded your business. Should have kept flying. Ryan's throat was too dry to speak. He swallowed. Tried again. Coast Guard knows I'm here. I called them before I landed. The man laughed. No, you didn't. We're jamming everything within 15 miles. Satellite, radio, cell, everything. We know you didn't call anyone. Your plane's transponder went dark the second you entered our interference zone. No one knows you're here. No one's coming. Ryan's heart sank. They'd thought of everything. So here's what happens next. the man continued. We load our cargo from the cave, get them back on the boat, take them to the transfer point. And you? He pulled out a pistol, aimed it at Ryan's head. Tragic accident, small plane crash, remote location. Happens all the time. They'll find your wreckage in a few months. Probably. He thumbed back the hammer. Any last words? Atlas growled. Low, wet-sounding, blood in his throat. But the dog was trying to stand, trying to protect Ryan, even wounded, even bleeding out, even dying. Atlas was still trying to do his job. And in that moment, staring at his partner, watching those brown eyes lock onto his own, Ryan understood something profound. He'd spent 6 months running from who he was, trying to be someone different, someone normal, someone who didn't make life or death decisions, someone who didn't carry the weight of other people's survival. But that had never been who he was. That Helmand province mission. The crash. Martinez and Chen dying. That wasn't failure. That was the job. People died in combat. Good people. Brave people. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it left scars. But running from it didn't honor their sacrifice. Hiding from responsibility didn't bring them back. What honored them was doing the job, saving lives, being the guardian angel, even when it was hard, even when it hurt, even when there was a gun pointed at your head and your partner was bleeding in the sand. The man with the gun made a mistake. He turned to look at Atlas, just for a second, just to confirm the dog wasn't a threat. That second was enough. Atlas lunged, not at the man. The dog was too smart for that, too well trained. Instead, Atlas went for what he'd been taught, the weapon. The dog's teeth clamped onto the man's wrist. The pistol fired, shot going wild into the air. The man screamed, tried to shake Atlas off. The dog held on, blood and determination. Ryan moved, hands still zip-tied behind his back. But he'd trained for this. Seer school. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Get your hands in front. Fight back. Never give up. He tucked into a ball, brought his knees to his chest, threaded his bound wrists under his hips, over his legs, past his feet. It hurt, shoulders screaming, old injuries protesting. But in 5 seconds, his hands were in front of his body. The trafficker had gotten free of Atlas. The dog lay in the sand, spent, bleeding. The man turned back to Ryan, raising his pistol. Ryan drove forward low, got under the gun, drove his shoulder into the man's solar plexus. They crashed to the ground. Ryan got his bound wrists around the man's throat, squeezed. The man thrashed, fought, clawed at Ryan's arms. Ryan held on, counted. In combat training, they'd learned it took 14 seconds to render someone unconscious with a proper chokehold. Ryan counted to 20, then 30. When he finally released, the man didn't move. Ryan grabbed the fallen pistol, checked it. 7 rounds remaining. He used a sharp rock to cut his zip ties, then ran to Atlas. The dog was alive, barely. The bullet had gone through his shoulder. Entry and exit wounds, missing bone and major arteries by what looked like inches. Lucky, so incredibly lucky. But he was bleeding badly, losing too much blood. Ryan tore off his shirt, pressed it against the wound, applied pressure. Stay with me, boy. Just hold on. I'm getting help. I swear to God, I'm getting help. The trafficker's boat. They had to have a radio, or their jammer. If Ryan could destroy the jammer, his satellite phone would work. He sprinted down the beach. The speedboat sat in the shallows, engine still running. He climbed aboard, searched frantically, found it. A black military spec electronic warfare device, sophisticated, expensive, powered by a marine battery. Ryan ripped out the power cables, The device died with a whine. Immediately his satellite phone chirped. Signal acquired. He dialed Coast Guard emergency, hands shaking, blood all over the screen. Coast Guard Sector Honolulu, what is your emergency? This is Captain Ryan Cole, serial number. He rattled it off. Former Air Force Pararescue. I have a mass casualty situation. I need immediate assistance. Multiple urgent. He gave the coordinates, explained the situation as quickly as he could. 20+ victims locked in a cave. 3 armed traffickers, 2 incapacitated, 1 deceased. 1 friendly canine with gunshot wound critical. Multiple dehydration cases, likely critical. The operator stayed calm. Professional. Copy all, Captain. Coast Guard cutter is 70 minutes from your position. Launching helicopter support now. ETA 22 minutes. Can you provide security until arrival? Affirmative. I can hold. Medical personnel en route. Stay on this line. Ryan ran back to Atlas. The dog's breathing was shallow, rapid, going into shock. Ryan elevated his legs, kept pressure on the wound. Talked to him. Help's coming, buddy. 20 minutes. You can make it 20 minutes. You've made it through worse. Remember? Kandahar. Remember that time you got hit by shrapnel and kept working for 6 more hours? This is nothing. You're the toughest dog I know. Just hold on. Emma appeared from the rocks. Is he going to die? No, Ryan said firmly. He's going to be fine. Go to the cave. Tell the people inside that help is coming. 20 minutes. Tell them to hang on. She ran. Ryan checked the 2 traffickers he'd incapacitated. Both were breathing. He zip-tied them, collected their weapons, threw them in the ocean. Then he sat with Atlas, one hand on the dog's head, the other keeping pressure on the wound. You saved me again, Ryan said quietly. How many times is that now? Kandahar, Mosul, that ambush outside Kabul, and now here. You keep saving my life, buddy. I owe you everything. Atlas's tail moved. Just slightly, just enough. In the distance, Ryan heard it, the distinctive thump of helicopter rotors, getting closer. He pulled an orange smoke flare from his bag, popped it, set it on the beach. Bright orange smoke billowed up. 2 minutes later, a Coast Guard MH-65 Dolphin helicopter appeared, descended, landed on the beach in a storm of sand and rotor wash. Paramedics jumped out before the skids touched down. One team ran to Atlas, another to the traffickers, a third headed for the cave with bolt cutters. A Coast Guard rescue swimmer approached Ryan. Sir, are you injured? I'm fine. The dog, he needs help. We've got him, sir. Our medic is a certified veterinary technician. He's in good hands. Ryan watched them work on Atlas. IV line placed, bandages applied, the dog loaded onto a stretcher. Professional. Efficient. Just like Ryan's old team used to work. A Coast Guard lieutenant approached. His name tape read Williams. Captain Cole? Ryan stood, swayed slightly. Williams caught his arm. Easy, sir. You're concussed. The cave. There are people. We're on it. Teams cutting the lock now. The sound of metal on metal. The padlock breaking. The door swinging open. And then people stumbling out. Blinking in the bright sun. Weak. Dehydrated. But alive. 15 of them. No. 17. Adults. Teenagers. 2 small children. Different nationalities, speaking different languages, but their expressions were universal. Relief, disbelief, gratitude. The look of people who'd given up hope and suddenly found it again. Medical teams swarmed them. IVs, oxygen, assessments. Emma ran to a woman and man, her parents. They collapsed together, holding each other, crying. Williams turned back to Ryan. Sir, we've been tracking this trafficking ring for 11 months. Had no idea where they were staging their operations. You just handed us the whole network. More helicopters arrived. A second MH-65, then a third. Then a massive MH-60 Jayhawk. And finally, a Coast Guard cutter appeared on the horizon, closing fast on the island. Captain, Williams continued, when my advance team landed and saw what you'd done here, how you'd neutralized 3 armed hostiles, rendered aid, maintained security, protected the victims. My team chief, 23-year veteran, combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, he looked at your tactical setup and his face went pale. Said it was the most professional solo rescue operation he'd seen outside of a JSOC mission. Ryan didn't know what to say. How many combat rescues did you lead, sir? Williams asked. 20, Ryan said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. Before I got out. Williams extended his hand. Make it 21, Captain. Welcome back. The Coast Guard medic approached. Young guy, maybe 25. Sir, your canine is stable. We've got the bleeding controlled. He needs surgery, but he's going to make it. Relief washed through Ryan so intense, his knees almost buckled. Can I see him? Of course. Atlas was on a stretcher, bandaged, sedated, but conscious. His eyes found Ryan immediately. His tail wagged weakly. You did it, buddy, Ryan said, kneeling beside him. You saved them all. Those people in the cave, Emma, her family, all of them alive because you wouldn't let it go, because you made me land, because you're the best damn partner anyone could ask for. Atlas licked his hand. Emma appeared with her parents. Her mother was crying. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years, but they were alive, together. Thank you, the father said in accented English. You saved my family, my children. I don't know how to. There are no words. Emma hugged Ryan. You saved us. You and Atlas. You're heroes. Atlas is the hero, Ryan said. I just listened to him. They loaded everyone onto helicopters. The victims, the traffickers, now in custody. The evidence, the weapons. 3 trips to ferry everyone. Ryan flew his Cessna off the beach. Atlas in the back, now stable, resting. Coast Guard cutter escort following him all the way to Honolulu. 3 days later, Ryan sat in a Coast Guard office, finishing his statement. The trafficking network had been bigger than anyone realized. 17 arrests across 3 countries. Dozens of victims freed. Operations spanning 5 years. All because one dog wouldn't stop whining during a routine flight. Admiral Richardson, Pacific Command, and Colonel Morrison, Air Force personnel, entered the office. Ryan stood automatically. At ease, Captain, Richardson said. We've been reviewing your file, your service record, the operation on that island. He paused. The Air Force is standing up a new Joint Personnel Recovery Agency. Combat search and rescue, training, real-world operations, partnership with Coast Guard, Navy, Marines. We need experienced officers who've been in the field, who know what they're doing. Colonel Morrison took over. We're offering you a reserve commission, Captain. You'd keep your civilian cargo business. But when we need you for operations or training, you'd activate, lead missions, train the next generation. And Atlas comes with you. Full K9 handler status. He'd be certified for search and rescue. Work with you on every mission. Ryan thought about the last 6 months. Flying cargo, hiding, pretending he could escape who he was. Then he thought about Emma's face when she saw her parents, those 17 people walking out of that cave into sunlight. Atlas's tail wagging, even though he'd been shot. He'd told himself he was done saving people, done with combat, done with responsibility. He'd been wrong. He'd never been done. He'd just been wounded, and sometimes wounds heal stronger than before. When do I start, sir? Ryan asked. Right now, if you're willing. 6 months later. Captain Ryan Cole stood on the deck of a Coast Guard cutter, watching the sunrise over the Pacific. He was back in uniform. Different role, but it fit better than civilian clothes ever had. Beside him sat Atlas. The dog's shoulder had healed completely. His fur had grown back over the scar. He wore his canine vest with pride. Search and rescue dog. The words embroidered in yellow on black. They'd run 6 missions in the last 6 months. 2 lost hikers in Hawaii. A capsized boat off Midway. A medical evacuation from a research vessel. A plane crash in the mountains. And yesterday, a missing child, 8 years old, wandered away from a campsite. Atlas had found her in 4 hours. Cold, scared, but alive. Reunited with her parents. That's what they did now. Found people, saved people, brought them home. Ryan's radio crackled. Captain Cole, operations. We've got a situation. Distress call from a sailing vessel, taking on water. 7 people on board, including children. You're the closest asset. Ryan looked at Atlas. The dog's ears perked up. Alert. Ready. Always ready. Copy that, Ops. Give me coordinates. We're wheels up in 5. They walked to the helicopter together. Pilot and K9. Partners. Brothers. Guardian angels. The engines spun up. Rotors began to turn. Ryan climbed in, Atlas jumping up beside him. As they lifted off, climbing into the morning sun, Ryan thought about something Emma had said in a video she'd sent him last week. Her family had been granted asylum. They were safe, starting over. At the end of the video, Emma had smiled at the camera. You saved my life, Captain Cole, but I think Atlas saved yours. She was right. The dog had pulled him back from the edge, forced him to stop running, reminded him who he was, what he was meant to do, save people, bring them home, be the guardian angel. Ready, boy? Ryan asked. Atlas's tail wagged. Then let's go to work. They banked over the ocean, heading toward someone who needed help, heading toward their next mission, heading toward the next person they'd bring home alive. Because that's what guardian angels do, always. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Share it with someone who loves stories about courage, loyalty, and finding your purpose. Because heroes come in all forms. Sometimes they fly helicopters. Sometimes they have 4 legs and never stop believing in you. But they're always there when we need them most. Thank you for watching.